Darkness clung to the narrow corridors of the mining freighter Valkyrie, 9 like a shroud of death. The emergency lights flickered, painting the metal walls in crimson and shadow, pulsing like a heartbeat in cardiac arrest. Somewhere in the bowels of the ship, a wet hiss echoed, followed by silence. Lieutenant Marin Reeves moved through the passage, pulse rifle cradled tight against his chest. Sweat soaked through his undershirt, clinging to his back despite the frigid air. The ship's temperature control had failed hours ago. So had the communications and the engines. Everything had failed. Except it. They'd picked up the distress signal from a derelict scientific outpost orbiting LV-943, a moon classified as inhospitable. Reeves' crew wasn't supposed to investigate. They were miners, not Marines. But the bonus offered by Wayland Corp was enough to tempt anyone. Even with the rumors, especially with the rumors of an ancient life form discovered deep beneath the moon's crust. An apex predator. They never should have gone down there. The first to die was Dobbs, the engineer, ripped from the elevator as they ascended with a mysterious egg-like specimen. They barely had time to register what happened before the blood sprayed the windows like red mist. Then Garcia trying to torch the egg. The thing that came out of it, Reeves didn't even have a word for it. It latched to her face like it was born to do nothing else. She convulsed, gagged, then fell still. Reeves closed his eyes for a second and reopened them. He couldn't afford to think. Thinking meant slowing down, and slowing down meant dying. The Xenomorph, at least that's what the outpost logs had called it, was loose aboard the Valkyrie. It had torn through his team with intelligence no beast should possess. Played with them, hunted them like game. And now Reeves was alone. His boots scuffed against a hatch, echoing too loud. He froze. His breath fogged in the cold. He scanned the overheads, the walls, the grates beneath his feet. No movement, no sound. Just the humming of systems slowly failing, and somewhere, a faint scraping noise. The medbay was up ahead. He needed painkillers, anything to dull the ache in his ribs where he'd slammed into the bulkhead running from the creature. His side throbbed with each breath, but adrenaline kept him upright. The door creaked open with an electric whine. Inside, the medical lights flickered to life, offering stark contrast to the blood-smeared walls. He stepped over what was left of Dr. Hanan. Her body had been split down the middle like a dissected frog, her expression frozen in a mixture of horror and disbelief. Something had burrowed out of her chest. The same thing that had burrowed out of Garcia. The crew hadn't known what the facehugger was until it was too late. And even then, they hadn't understood the real horror. What it left behind. Reeves rummaged through the drawers, hands trembling, found a hypo of morphine, slammed it into his arm. Relief was instant and illusory, but it was enough. A clatter outside the medbay snapped his attention. He killed the lights and backed against the far wall, rifle up. A low clicking noise filtered in through the open door, followed by a deep growl, impossibly soft, almost curious. The corridor fell silent. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. Then it appeared. His head entered first, long, smooth, and black as obsidian. The double jaws flexed, dripping saliva that hissed as it hit the metal floor. It moved like smoke given form. Silent, fluid, inevitable. 7 feet of perfected death. Reeves wanted to scream but dared not. His finger twitched on the trigger. He knew what would happen if he fired. He'd tried before. Bullets bounced off its carapace like pebbles. Fire worked. Fire hurt it. But they'd lost the flamethrower in the engine room days ago. It sniffed the air, its eyeless gaze somehow aware of him. Then it tilted its head and moved on. Reeves waited a full minute before collapsing to his knees. He didn't know how much longer he could keep this up. The ship was massive, But the Xenomorph knew every inch of it now. Could be anywhere. Could be watching him now. He needed a plan. There was an escape pod left. One. The others had either been used or were ripped apart. But the last pod required a launch code from the command deck. That meant going through the central core. And if the Xenomorph was smart, it would be waiting there. He got moving, step after step, heartbeat by heartbeat. Along the way, he passed the remnants of his crew, each one a grim marker. Lomas, pinned to the ceiling with her own bones. Cal, frozen mid-scream, half dissolved in acid. Reeves had stopped grieving. Now there was only survival and silence. He reached the core junction, an intersection where 4 corridors met beneath the reactor. The lights were dead. Only the dim glow of the ship's dying systems illuminated the way forward. Suddenly, a low sound echoed, like metal on metal. He ducked into a side shaft just as the Xenomorph lunged into view from above, dropping silently from the ceiling like a phantom. It didn't look around. It knew he was there. Reeves crawled backward, heart hammering, until his foot hit something. A grate. He kicked it loose and slid into the crawl space beneath the floor, heart in his throat. The metal below was slick with condensation. He didn't care. He crawled inch by inch toward the command deck. Above him, the thuds of movement followed. Steady, deliberate. Reeves reached the lift and triggered the manual override. The elevator groaned to life, crawling upward like it was dragging the dead with it. As the doors opened, the bridge lay in ruin. Terminals flickered. Blood was everywhere. The captain's body slumped against the console. A terminal spike still jammed into his neck. Reeves didn't hesitate. He shoved the captain's ID into the mainframe and activated the launch protocol. The system beeped, demanded a retinal scan. He cursed and yanked the spike from the captain's neck, dragging the body toward the scanner. Another sound. A whimper? He froze. A child's cry echoed through the bridge. Impossible. There were no children on board. Then he realized. The Xenomorph was mimicking sounds. It was luring him. He scanned the captain's eye. The system blinked green. Pod 1, launch ready. The child's voice giggled. Reeves turned and saw nothing. But he knew it was close. The escape pod hatch was down the hall. 30 meters. He bolted. The moment he did, the ceiling above cracked open like a shell, and the Xenomorph crashed down behind him, shrieking. Reeves ran. Every nerve in his body screamed. The hallway turned into a blur. Lights exploded around him. The air grew thick and hot with the stench of acid and oil. He reached the pod and slammed his fist on the control panel. The doors hissed open. He dove inside. The creature slammed into the closing doors, its inner jaw punching through the gap, barely missing his skull. He grabbed a fire axe from the pod's wall and hacked blindly. The blade met resistance. A shriek tore through the metal. Acid splashed his arm. Pain. But the doors sealed. He fell backward as the pod launched, tearing free of the Valkyrie like a bullet. The ship shrank behind him, consumed by the stars. Silence. Then, sobbing, he looked at his arm. Burned. Useless. But he was alive. He was the last. For now. But he knew the truth. The creature wasn't alone. The egg they found had been one of many. The outpost wasn't a lab, it was a nursery. And Valkyrie 9 had been the womb. As the pod drifted toward a colonial outpost on Gaia's edge, he stared into the darkness of space and whispered to himself, "There's no one left to scream." But something out there was listening, and it remembered his voice.